Let's read Genesis 12, 1 through 3 together. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth will be blessed." This is the word of the Lord. Amen. You may be seated. Well, I have a treat for you. A little over a year ago, I met a new doctoral student at Lipscomb, and I found it really interesting that a Jewish rabbi would do his doctoral studies at a Christian university. And so I began to talk with him at every available opportunity. And so last fall, I told Rabbi Rice that we would be using the Hebrew word hanenin this year in our messages, and asked him for his thoughts. And he gave me a wonderful Hebrew lesson. And so I asked if he would just consider coming and talking to us today. Now, 25 years ago, and so Pastor Hardwick is with us today, 25 years ago, he brought his friend, Rabbi Falk, to this pulpit. And I still remember the message that Rabbi Falk spoke that day, and it was, "What a Jew sees in the Sermon on the Mount." And or a Jew looks at Sermon on the Mount, something like that. And I found it very striking and moving. So, you know, we'll see if you can measure up to Rabbi Falk. I have no idea. But one thing I know for sure, we don't need to wait another 25 years before we have a rabbi to come and speak to us. I've grown to very much respect and appreciate Rabbi Rice. His comments about Scripture and life and spiritual life are often profound and always enlightening. Would you welcome Rabbi Phillip Rice?
How many people were here when Rabbi Falk spoke? Not really that many to compare to, right? It is an honor and a treat to be here with you and to share in your worship. Pastor Dan, I know you all are very blessed to have him. And I think he's not only a gifted pastor, but I'm proud to call him a friend and a colleague and, frankly, a teacher. And things that he has taught me in class are profound as well, and even more importantly, you all taught me this morning on ways to worship and how to be authentic doing it. So I'm just blessed and honored to be here, and I appreciate it. I'm a rabbi right down the road, Congregation Micah. Old Hickory is also on our address, and you should know that almost all of our programs and services are free and open to the public, and you are welcome to come. Churches come all the time. A lot of our Jewish members are married to non-Jewish people, and that is one of the reasons I enrolled at Lipscomb, because they've got great things to teach, and Christianity has a lot to teach. And just as I'm going to teach you a little bit about Judaism, we have a lot to learn from you as well. So here we go. It was lunchtime, as I recall. I had just sat down to my favorite meal, barley bread, lentils, and a nice bowl of sour goat's milk. My mouth was watering. I could hardly wait to eat. And then I realized there was one thing that would make this meal perfect. And I opened my mouth, and I was about to yell, "Honey, would you please grab me a beer?" When all of a sudden I heard a voice. And I'm not quite sure where the voice came from. And looking back, I can't even describe what it sounded like. Maybe a little like my grandfather, whose voice I had not heard since I was a little boy. Anyway, the voice called to me, and this is what it said. It said, "Lech lecha ma'artzecha." Now, thankfully, I speak Hebrew. I'm thinking you probably don't, so I'll translate for you. You actually are familiar with it. It said, "Lech lecha, go forth, ma'artzecha, from your native land, mimoledecha, and from the place of your birth, umi beit avicha, and from the house of your father, el haaretz, to the land asher areka, that I will show you. Ve'echcha lech goy gadol, and I will make of you a great nation. Ve'avarechacha, and I will bless you. Ve'aglacha shmecha, and I will make your name great. Ve'hyeh bracha, and you shall be a blessing. And that was it. I said, what? Could you repeat that? It happened so fast. And the voice only spoke once. So I called my wife. I said, honey, come here. I have to tell you something. And while you're at it, you better bring me a beer. Sarah came in. She was skeptical, as you might imagine. My wife is something. You know her? 65 years old, but she looks 19. Smart as a whip, too. You can't pull anything over on Sarah. So I tell her what the voice says, and she says, what? Move? You're out of your mind. And she gives me this whole lecture how housing prices are down and we'd be selling at a loss, and she tells me for the umpteenth time that I shouldn't be such a dreamer. Really, Sarah, I say to her, what do we have here in Mesopotamia? Not very much. The family is small. No children to our regret. I'd like to see a little something of the world. So that's the long and the short of it. We pulled up our stakes, headed west, took along my father, Terach, who was too old to leave alone. We took along our nephew. We call him Lot, because he's got a lot of attitude. We traveled for a long time. Along the way, in Haran, my father died. We were never close, but I miss him anyway. Now and then, Sarah would get frustrated. She'd say, remind me, Avraham, why are we schlepping around like this? What did you say was the point of it all? Not sure, I would say. Something about being a blessing. And eventually, it became a little clearer to me. Now and then, I would hear the voice again. Al tirach, Abraham, fear not, Abraham, it would say. Anochi magen lecha, I am a shield to you. Once it told me, habet na hashemayma, look toward the heavens, usfor hakochavim, and count the stars. Kachoye zarechacha, because so shall your offspring be. And then one day, the voice said a little more. It said, Chamchesha ani Abraham asher osi. Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? Ki yidatav, because I singled him out. Lama'an asher yitzaveh et banav, that he might instruct his children. Vishamru derech Adonai, to keep the way of God. La'asot tzedakah v'mashpat, by doing what is just and what is right. Oh, I said to Sarah, now I understand. The reason we're here on this journey is because we're supposed to do what's just and right. Such a genius you are, my wife says. So what's just and right? And that's the question, right? That's the question we always ask. What is just and what is right? 2,000 years ago, there lived a Rabbi Judah. And he is famous for asking this question. He said, Eze hu derech yashara. What is the right and proper path for a person to choose? And it's the question that Jews ask all over the world. It's the question that our country is asking as well, as we face daunting challenges in our time. Things like how to bring back prosperity, and how to ensure a better future for our next generation. We all want to do what is just and what is right. But how do we know what is right? What is the proper path for a person or a nation to choose? Judaism has something to say about this. At the very heart of the Jewish faith and the Jewish tradition is this call to make the world a better place. And I wish more Jews, more people heard that call and answered with this this word you explore, hineni. Here I am, and I'm ready. I'm ready and up to the challenge. Because we work hard in our synagogues, like I'm sure you do in your church, to develop moral character, to help people hear and answer the call. And that really is only a means to an even larger end, transformation. Judaism aims at nothing less than a good society, a moral community. And it's set out from the very beginning not to save souls, but to save the world. And all of our study and our prayer and our rituals are devoted to this single end, to bring about a time, as our prayer book suggests, that the rule of tyranny shall pass away from the earth. What defines an honorable person and a just society? What are the pillars, at least according to Jewish morality? Here are some of them. First is honesty, freedom from deceit and fraud. And you don't have to go far in the Bible to find it. I think of Leviticus chapter 19. Do not lie, do not steal, do not cheat one another. Cheating on your spouse or lying to your loved ones destroys trust, and it eats away at family unity. So also dishonesty in business and government. It destroys the social trust. It corrodes civic unity. And the Bible is especially hard on people who cheat get ahead by making a profit on things like using false weights and measures. And it seems silly, but people do it. Better is a poor man who lives blamelessly than a rich man whose ways are crooked. Proverbs 28:6. This should be so obvious. It should go without saying, right? But apparently it bears repeating in a country in which lying and fraud are routinely practiced, and often at the highest levels of leadership. And so Judaism teaches that a good person doesn't lie and it doesn't cheat, and a good society doesn't condone it. And sometimes saying, hineni, here I am, and I'm ready, means speaking truth to power. A second pillar, hard work and personal responsibility. Chaim David Halevi, he's a former Sephardic chief rabbi in Israel. He once said, in the Jewish worldview, work is sacred. It is building and creating a partnership with God in the work of creation. So these two rabbinic sages, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Simon, are arguing, but they both teach, great is labor, for it honors the workman. And both sages would purposely carry heavy objects on their shoulders around town, and when they would go to the house of study or the house of worship, because they wanted to show their students that manual labor should be respected. And our sages believed deeply in the sense of self-worth and dignity that come from supporting yourself. And that is stated most succinctly and quite beautifully in Psalm 128, which says, when you eat the labor of your own hands, you will be happy, and it will be well with you. Judaism says that a good person, works hard and doesn't look down on those who do menial work, but treats all laborers with respect. And a good society makes it possible for all able-bodied people to be productive and support themselves. So Judaism teaches us to see ourselves less as owners than as guardians of our property. While we live, we're entrusted to use what we possess in accordance with the teachings of the true owner. Not only to provide for ourselves and to our family, but also to use these tools and gifts to benefit others. And this applies not only to land and movable possessions, but to the resources of the earth, water and air and plants and animal life, sources of energy. We may benefit from them, but we are not permitted to destroy them. We are not permitted to befoul them or plunder the inheritance of generations that will come after us. And that sometimes is a hard lesson to swallow. Things that we hold in our hands, that sit in our house, on our land, money that is in our bank accounts, why shouldn't we be able to do with them exactly as we please? Why should their use be governed by anything than our own desires. Because our natural inclination is to think mostly of ourselves and to focus on our own short-term interests. So in walks Judaism, and it entrusts this matter not to individuals, but to the community, and then it elevates it and makes it a matter of law. Our sages taught that a decent society provides for the basic needs of its members. It assists those who are unable to provide for themselves. A decent community draws on the resources of those who are able to pay for those types of necessities. So Dr. Meir Tamari, he's an economist and a scholar of Jewish business ethics in Israel. He summarizes it well when he writes, assistance to the poor and the weak and the treatment of the environment cannot be delegated to the sphere of individual conscience. Therefore, the community has the right to tax the individual for those social purposes and to introduce legislation that forces the individual to part with part of their private wealth. There's another principle underlying everything, and it's fascinating. It comes from Judaism's oral law, and goes like this. Ha'omer shali shali v'shalach shalach ze benonit. Yesh omrim zo midat Sodom. It means a person who says, what's mine is mine, and what's yours is yours, is the mark of an average person. And some even say it's the mark of Sodom, like Sodom and Gomorrah. What's mine is mine, what's yours is yours. Sounds like a person who respects the property of other people, who takes care of his own things and does no harm to anybody else's stuff. You think this be the mark of a good person. But instead, Judaism in the oral law says it's the philosophy of an average, mediocre person. And some opinions go even further. They say it's the way that the people of Sodom thought and acted. You see, in rabbinic thought, Sodom is the symbol of the evil community. And the evil depravity has nothing to do with homosexuality. Our sages locate the evil of Sodom in another quality entirely. They base themselves on the words of the prophet Ezekiel, who said, this was the sin of your sister, Sodom, arrogance. She and her daughters had plenty of bread, untroubled tranquility, and yet she did not support the poor or the needy. Sodom, Brentwood, was a beautiful, affluent city whose citizens exemplified the principle of extreme individualism. Everyone for themselves. They felt no obligation to anyone else, no mutual responsibility, no compassion. They recognized no humanity that unites all of us into one human family. What's mine is mine, what's yours is yours, they said. Keep your hands off my money, they said. They said, I do not care what you do, whether you're sick or you're old or you're poor. I will not steal from you, but neither will I help you. Some individuals say, or at least when they do, I have no obligations to you. Then where does that leave our society? When everybody says, mine is mine and yours is yours, then that society has accepted a concept of absolute private property. And then economic evil has gone far from the selfishness or crimes of marginal individuals. The whole society can become corrupt. It was not individual acts of inhospitality that most characterized Sodom, but rather their collective refusal to utilize the wealth they had to alleviate any kind of suffering. The Torah, the Bible as you know it, you see, tells us to open our hands to our needy brothers and sisters. And it says, there should be no poor among you. Deuteronomy 15:4. Wait a second. Not 10 verses later, the same Torah says, there will never cease to be needy ones in your land. What was true in biblical times is true today. And here's why. Because intelligence and talent are unevenly distributed within our population. Because there will always be those people who get sick. There will be people who are disabled physically or mentally. There are elderly. There are people who outlive their savings. There are people who are simply unlucky. People who lose their jobs when a factory closes. Management wants to cut costs, or an entire industry goes belly up. And there will always be children born into those families. And a civilized society, says Judaism, encourages effort and personal responsibility and hard work and self-reliance, but it cares for the vulnerable and the helpless. A few years ago, archaeologists unearthed in Israel the oldest piece of Hebrew writing yet discovered. And there were these words painted onto a clay pot. They thought it was like 3,000 years old. And these experts think that the author was like maybe an official court person in training, and they were practicing their writing skills by writing the most important laws over and over again. And this is what was written. Give rights to the slaves and the widows. Give rights to the orphans and the foreigners. Protect the poor, the rights of the poor. Protect the rights of the children. I wonder what our sages would have thought of our country, where the poor, the immigrants are ignored or despised, regarded with disdain, are called lazy, shiftless, freeloaders. I don't care who you are, it's wrong for children to be hungry. And it's especially wrong for them to be hungry in a country where there's so much wealth, staggering wealth, concentrated at the very top, and often spent on self-indulgence and display. And to be told that we simply cannot afford to take care of those things, those people who have almost nothing? These words I've spoken are at the heart of, I think, all great religions. They're at the heart of this great country. And I would love for you here now to listen to an American president describing what he called a narrow and destructive mindset. The idea that if government would only get out of the way, all our problems would be solved. An approach with no higher goal, no nobler purpose than leave me alone. This is not who we are as Americans. We have always found our better selves in sympathy and generosity, both in our lives and in our laws. Americans will never write the epitaph of idealism. It emerges from our nature as a people, with a vision of the common good beyond profit and loss. Our national character shines in our compassion. We're a nation of rugged individuals, but we are also the country of the second chance, tied together by bonds of friendship and community and solidarity. And these were words spoken in 1999 by former President George W. Bush. And they articulate beautifully what is best about our country and our own souls. Energies, I hope and pray, we will summon to meet the challenges that lie ahead. So there I was, just about to sit down to this nice lunch. Whole wheat pita this time, some nice juicy falafel, if you've heard of it. All of a sudden, there was that voice again. Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? For I have singled him out, that he may instruct his children to keep the way of God by doing what is just and right. I thought to myself, easy for you to say, but the voice kept on speaking. The outcry of Sodom is so great and their sin is so grave. But what can I do? I asked. I don't know those people. They're strangers to me. The voice didn't speak anymore. But I heard the words reverberate in my ears just the same. And then my wife, Sarah, she spoke, as she always does. She said, do what is just and right. So I thought about all the innocent souls in that city, all the millions and millions of children, other people's children, our children, all of them. And when I closed my eyes, I could see them. Kids hungry for a meal, growing up on streets full of dirt and drugs and crime, and packed into failing schools, and spending their childhood amidst the stench of poverty and despair. And when I listened very hard, I could hear the children cry. And I heard that voice. And it called one more time. It said, Abraham, Abraham. And I knew the voice was saying that it was up to me. And so I stood up and I opened my mouth. And this is what I said. I said, Hineni, here I am. And I'm ready to do what is just and right. Thank you very much for having me this morning.
Would you remain standing? Thank you, Rabbi Rice, for that thought-provoking word this morning. In our closing moments, I have one final announcement to make, one that I forgot to make earlier, but is very important. We have new members with us this week. And so I want to let them wave to us so we can get to know them. So here are our new members this month. Catherine Bracken. Catherine, are you here with us? Okay, she's sick. We'll pray for her, y'all. And when she's here next week, get to know her. Okay, Carolyn Edwards. Carolyn? Okay, we'll pray for Carolyn too. And Ariel Marshall. Is Ariel Marshall with us? We wanted to be able to wave to you. Okay, well, these are our new members, and please get to know them. And if you're visiting with us and you want to join, go out to Connect with Christ Church and fill out a card, and they will be glad to greet you. And now, as we prepare to go into our weeks and all the things that the Lord has called us to do in our families, in our homes, in our communities, in our neighborhoods, in our businesses, we pray that over each one of us, each one gathered in this room and under the sound of my voice, that the Lord will bless you and that He'll keep you, that the Lord will cause His face to shine down on you, that the Lord will be ever so gracious to you, and that the Lord will lift up every part of our countenance, seen and unseen, that is low, that He'll lift it up and fill us always and always and always full of His peace through the ages of ages. And all God's people said, amen. Go in peace and serve the Lord.